Bienvenidos a Canal Grafotécnica en su serie Documentoscopia Mundial. Les habla RaymondOrta, perito en análisis forense de documentos, fundador de CIPDO y miembro de la SQD. El día de hoy estamos de fiesta. Vamos a iniciar un nuevo tipo de programas. Vamos a tener invitados internacionales, incluyendo otros idiomas. El día de hoy vamos a estar con el perito Pavlos Kipouras de Grecia. Vamos a tener una transmisión. Pavlos habla varios idiomas, pero nos vamos a comunicar con él en inglés y les vamos a pedir a todos, por favor, que vayan y activen la función de subtítulos en la barra de Zoom. Los que están conectados a través de Zoom van a activar en la barra de abajo donde dice más, tienen que seleccionar activar subtítulos. Para esto es la única manera que vamos a poder ver la traducción. Hoy nos acompaña mi hija Andrea, que va a estar ayudándonos con la traducción simultánea. Pavlos, welcome to Documentoscopia Mundial. You're a special guest and you are very welcome. Please salute our guest.
Good evening to everyone. Good evening from Athens, Greece. I'm very glad to be here. I would like to thank you personally for the invitation. It's a great honor for me. But I would like to say a few things, just two things more about this transmission. First of all, you are the reason since July that I heard about your transmission. You are the reason why I have to be slower while talking, no?
Thank you. Andrea is doing her best.
Yes, I'm sorry. I have this tendency to talk very fast. So, you are the reason why in the last months I go to sleep every Friday evening very late.
Oh, thank you. You're very kind.
Because right now here it's midnight and I would like to say also that this transmission has a technological pro, an advantage. It has the possibility right today to connect someone who lives on the 2nd of October with someone who lives on the 3rd of October. We are in a different date right now. So you are talking.
We're listening. Continue, Pavlos.
You have managed to connect present with future.
It's funny. Let me introduce you.
Yes, thank you so much.
Our audience, please. I will read your professional resume. A los que se están conectando en este momento, por favor, activen la opción de subtítulos en la parte de en la barra, la parte derecha, activar subtítulos. Pavlos Kipouras es perito en documentos, trabaja en Grecia, es profesor en Grecia y en Italia. Voy a leer brevemente su resumen curricular. Profesor de Historia de la Escritura Griega en la Universidad de Pegaso en Italia, del 2015 al 2016. Profesor de Escritura en Griego y Elementos de la Escritura Griega en la Escuela Forense de Grafología, del 2016 al 2020. Profesor de Grafopatología en Escritura Griega en la Escuela de Grafopatología Forense, 2018-2020. Investigador de la Universidad del Sur de los Urales del Sur en Rusia desde el 2020 a la fecha. Es perito examinador de documentos en judicial en, evidentemente, Grecia. Voy a hacer primero la pregunta en español y luego la hago en inglés para que Pablo la conteste. Pablo, y Pablo también es abogado. Esto es bien interesante. Pablo, ¿cuál es, digamos, cómo es la profesión o cómo es la profesión de perito en Grecia o cómo es la legislación en Grecia para presentar dictámenes periciales? Pablo, what about the forensic document examiner profession?
I understood.
Because
I understood,
Pablo
okay.
también habla italiano y puede entender un poco. Ok, Pablo, cuéntame.
So, first of all, about the legislation in Greece. I have to say that we have private experts. The experts are not belonging to a public service, so they are private experts mostly. There are also some police officers who are document examiners. I'm sorry to talk so slowly. I try to follow the inscription of the translation.
Sí, Pablo, de todas maneras está diciendo que también que hay peritos privados en Grecia principalmente, aunque también hay policiales.
According to the legislation, when a part goes to court, he can use a private document examiner so as to make a private expert report.
And so you take those, or the lawyers take the report to the court or to the case directly?
Yes, just to justify their claims about forgery or authenticity of a document. Then, in the second and the next point of the procedure, the judge usually nominates a document examiner, an expert from a catalog of the court.
Okay.
In that,
do you do depositions at the trial? Que si hace, luego se ratifica el informe en el juicio, like an expert witness, o declara como testigo en el juicio.
Yes, we can go to testify to the court. We can take part in the audience as testimonies, expert testimonies, and we can do it or like private experts, or sometimes the judge calls us in the court in order to justify as document examiners nominated by the court. Sometimes in the phase of the nomination of the document examiner, the parts can nominate their technical advisors. Am I going too fast?
No, don't worry.
Okay, the technical advisors can communicate with the nominated expert, and they can exchange technical opinions. They can examine the documents that the other part has presented in the case's file, and after the deposition of the report of the document examiner, they can make their own reports in which they comment the conclusion of the expert nominated by the court. So it's...
What about, Pavlos, a question, una pregunta. Sí, y en los juicios de carácter penal pueden participar peritos privados. In the criminal cases,
of course.
The private forensic document examiners can go and testify?
Yes, of course.
Okay. So, what about tell us about your teaching experience and how it helped you to work as forensic document examiner. La pregunta es, que esos conocimientos que imparte como profesor de escritura, de historia de la escritura griega, cómo le han ayudado como experto en documentos.
First of all, I would like to point out that there's no graphological school or university in Greece. So I have studied in Italy in a very famous, in Europe at least, university, University of the State in the town of Urbino, which was founded as a university, not a department of graphology. It was founded on 1506, so it's quite old, one of the first universities of the European continent. So I have studied graphology applied on the Latin alphabet. In the case of the Greek alphabet, there are some letters which are different as in their morphology. So I had to adopt the theory, the Italian theory of Moretti, which is the most known Italian theory in Europe, on the Greek alphabet, on the particular letters of the Greek alphabet. Then my teaching experience in Italy. I have to say that I have taken part in a school which was founded in 2016. The atmosphere is very friendly. The school exists and is functioning properly. I didn't have the opportunity to continue my collaboration with this school. I don't know, of course, what will happen. Yes, sorry. Okay.
A question, una pregunta. La denominación en Italia se denomina, tú que has estudiado ya, grafología judiciaria. Es por eso, este nombre sigue siendo así. I'm making you the same question that I did you before about the name of the profession of forensic document examinations in Italy and then in Greece.
First of all, the legislation is completely the same with the legislation in Greece. About the term they use, they are talking, some years ago they were using the term graphologia judiciaria, judicial graphology. The ultimate tendency is to talk about Pericias grafotécnica. So, and I think that this is the right way of facing the evolution of our science nowadays, because of the technological evolution and the use of technology, even in the lab analysis of the documents of the cases. Okay, I will continue about my experience as a teacher in Italy. I see that I don't think that this is valid only for Italy. I think it's valid even for Greece and maybe for the most of the North European countries. There are different tendencies in the way they approach the document examination, the whole procedure and the whole and the role of the document examiner. I will talk about it in my presentation, but just as an introduction, I would like to say that we can't apply, in my opinion, nowadays we can't apply only the graphological approach, because the use of technology nowadays has made it necessary to amplify a little bit our point of view, our vision of approaching the object of analysis, and we have to use a different point. You have to face reality from a different point of view. I am talking practically about the point of view and the vision of document examination. The tendency from what I have realized going throughout the world and following congresses or presenting papers in congresses from Brazil to China, the modern tendency has to do with the preliminary lab analysis, and which is always very, very important. But I think that there are cases where the lab analysis can't give us the right direction to the conclusion, and there are other cases where graphology is completely necessary in our approach and analysis of the case. I will make a reference in the end of my presentation in two cases in Greek language, two testaments, where all these issues are put on the table of discussion.
Pavlos, let's start your presentation.
Perfect.
Estoy pidiendo a Pablo que por favor iniciemos su presentación. Para los que se están conectando ahora, por favor activen la opción de subtítulos en los que están en Zoom, los que están vía YouTube, están ya viéndolas automáticamente. Tenemos gente conectada de Oaxaca, México, tenemos por supuesto nuestros compañeros de Argentina y tenemos, si no me equivoco, a Isa Brown conectada desde Aruba. Y por supuesto participantes de Buenos Aires, los compañeros de siempre, Adriana Siloto, Carmen están en España, María Jesús, Villamón, estamos con otros asistentes de todas partes del mundo. Gracias por acompañarnos en este día tan especial. Pavlos, please continue or start your presentation.
You can see, I imagine everything is okay. You can see my presentation.
Let's check. Yes.
Okay. So, let's start from the usual problem of the modern times. Which terms should we use in order to be up to date with the modern evolution? In the last 6 months, I would say that this is the positive effect of the COVID. I have started following different seminars throughout the world, and especially from South America. I'm very glad that I understood that your level of graphological experience and knowledge is very, very high. Although I have heard different terms, I don't speak Spanish, I speak Italian and English, and I can understand more or less the terms and the meaning of Spanish presentation. I have heard several times terms like Pericia calligraphica. I hope I pronounce it in the right way, Pericia. Calligraphica means it derives from the Greek word, the combination of two Greek words, kalos, which mean beauty, and graphi. So it's the beautiful handwriting. This was the system that they were teaching in the 20th century in the schools. And that is why we could find several morphological and particular aspects of several letters from the morphological point of view. Sorry. So, is it the right term to continue that we have to continue to use when talking about the expertise? I think no, because in the mentality of people, it is of other scientists, of other sectors, it is something like not so scientific. It's like something fortune teller. the same idea they have about when they hear the term graphology. Of course, graphology has to deal with the analysis of the personality of the writer, so it's much more scientific. We have to say there that there are some problems about the recognition of the scientific nature of graphology. I will talk about it just in a few minutes. The other term I heard is documentoscopia, from the Latin word document and the Greek word skopeo, skopo, which means observe. So that means that I observe, I analyze the documents and arriving to the conclusion. I think it's quite appropriate as a term, but maybe the most appropriate term is Pericias Grafotécnica, which derives from graphy, handwriting, and technique. It's a method of art. So it's something like an art of explaining the situation in the documents. The terms of graphology or document examination are the terms which we have heard several times, and we hear more and more frequently. Of course, these are the main different approaches in our sector, and they have quite a different sequence in considering the analysis. Italian and French schools are mainly based on the graphological methods of Moretti in Italy and Misson and Crépier's-Amen in France, while the American and North European approach are based mainly on the technical basis. They give more emphasis to the lab analysis of the case. Of course, in the case of application of graphology in the document, in the expertise, we have the problems deriving from the laws regarding the protection of privacy. And more restrictions have been legislated lately, in May 2018, with the law of the European Community, which is known as GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation. It's a law that it is continuously being updated. You can find more information in the link below in this slide. We have a problem with the recognition of the scientific nature of graphology, and that is the problem we face, because most of the the enthusiasts of the positive scientists consider that a science could be considered as a science. A special part of knowledge, a special sector of knowledge could be considered as a science if it has a method which permits us to repeat the same results by repeating the same procedure. So just like a chemical scientist who can reproduce under the same circumstances numerous times the same result, and in the same analogy between the substances who is mixing. Is it a way of approaching the scientific nature of graphology? That's the main question. Can we apply the same rules in graphology? Because this is the mentality of positive sciences, and graphology belongs to the humanistic sciences, which have to deal with another very particular object of analysis, the human individual. Could the human individual be always the same in his behavior, even if he faces in different times the same stimulus? I think no, because there are numerous factors, not only regarding the psychology or the physiological state, the physiological condition. When I say physiological, I mean from the point of view of physiology of the human body. Can it be the same result always in the same stimulus? Sometimes yes, sometimes the behavior could be completely different, or slightly, or even completely different. So, apart from these psychological or physiological factors, there could be external factors that could affect negatively the reaction, the graphic product of an individual. You can imagine, for example, riding in a train in movement, or in a bus, or in a car in movement. There are extrinsic factors which could provoke great difference in the morphology of the letters, or even in the dynamic aspects of the handwriting. You can imagine, we know that even two squiggles that are put just one next to the other in different time of only 2 or 3 seconds could be completely different, because every graphic reproduction is completely unique, even for the same hand. So, is it possible to demand from graphology to adopt these unfamiliar requisites in order to recognize its scientific nature? Isn't it restrictive as an ideological approach by those, the enthusiasts of positive scientists, who demand such requirements from the method, the scientific method of graphology? Of course, that does not mean that graphology should be considered a unique case, a particular case in which we are allowed to apply particular methodological requisites or criteria. But we have to say that under certain circumstances, there are many particularities which have to be taken into consideration in order to recognize the scientific nature. The technical orientation, the more technical orientation, which is more near to the mentality of the positive scientists, that they follow in the United States and in the northern part of Europe, of course, it's a pass towards this direction of the recognition of the scientific nature. I think that in this case we can't leave behind the traditional graphology. We just need to adapt the traditional methods, theoretical methods of graphology in these new tendencies. And this will help us to invigorate as scientists which belong in this particular sector. As graphologists, will help us to invigorate the diagnostic possibilities and to become more reliable in our conclusions. This is, in this point, it's very important, the role of graphometry. Of course, we're talking about the modern image of graphology, the modern orientation of graphometry, and not the one that has created several problems in the past. We remember the Dreyfus case in France in the 18th century, and the practical fail of the graphometrical method of Bertillon. In the 20th century in Italy, there was a mixed theory, graphological and graphometrical, of Marco Marchesan, which was not has not arrived in the level of being acceptable as a method. So the modern tendency is the use of the tablets and the particular softwares. There are different softwares in the market, so as to analyze in a mathematical way all the dynamical aspects. In this case, I have to to give my congratulations to Professor Ziliotto, who presented last week the program, her software of graphometry, and I think that there are some topics and some possibilities of this, not possibilities, some measurements of this software that quite different from the ones at least I have experienced, and they are very important in order to give a based analysis of the dynamical aspect of handwriting. The problem is that we are nowadays in the middle of the path from the traditional graphology to the allow me the term, to the modern digital graphology. I consider the tablet as the new way, the new type of, the new kind of paper. I call it personally as a digital paper. The problem is that we have to face in the next years cases in which we will have to compare documents written in the traditional mode, in the traditional paper, and documents or signatures usually produced in the graphic surface of a tablet. Somehow in the future we will arrive in the point to compare digitally written signatures with other ones of the same kind, so as we will be in the same condition to compare same things, because this is very important in the comparison of document examination. Of course, graphometry itself is not a solution to the problem, because the most important thing is to be able to translate the graphometrical revelation with the traditional knowledge of graphology, because in the end, always the signature or the handwriting is produced by a human individual. So yes, I'm going too fast.
No, Andreas, doing very, very well.
She's very good. I see.
I have to interrupt you because we have to do our segment about the former forensic document examiners in Latin America or in the world, and I have to talk about a forensic document examiner from Venezuela. Please let me do a very short resemble from him. I'm a todos los presentes cumpliendo con nuestra sección de hoy recordamos y para que nuestra traductora estrella tome una pequeña pausa, vamos a hablar de Pablo Guzmán, quien fue un perito en documentos o perito grafotécnicos de Venezuela, muy importante y con quien tuve la oportunidad de trabajar. Ya Pablo se fue hace algunos años, está en otro plano ya, pero su labor fue muy importante porque fue precursor de la grafotécnica en Venezuela. Él instaló la oficina de identificación en Barcelona, estaba en Suática, Venezuela. En 1946 fue director de la oficina de identificación de Puerto Cabello y digamos que incluso tuvo familiares que estuvieron en la parte de identificación dentro de lo que eran los funcionarios públicos en esa época. Fue uno de los primeros y me lo confirmó uno de sus hijos, a quien les mandamos agradecimientos muchísimo, a su hijo Pablo y a su hijo Pedro, que me dieron esta información. Pablo fue el primero que recibió un título o un diploma en análisis forense de escritura en Venezuela. Luego pasó a ser director de la Oficina Nacional de de identificación, de la oficina de identificación en un municipio muy conocido aquí que se llama Chacao, y fue fundador del Cuerpo Técnico de Policía Judicial en Mérida, y posterior pasa a ser director del Departamento de Grafotécnica en Venezuela. En este programa hacemos un homenaje a él, a su obra. En lo particular tengo muchas anécdotas de él sobre el uso de terminología, y tenía un refrán que decía: mientras menos escribas, menos te vas a equivocar. Con eso hablaba de la precisión y de lo conciso que tenían que ser los dictámenes, y de lo centrados que tenían que ser las opiniones basadas en las simples observaciones. Entonces, así continuamos. Le damos gracias a todos los que están conectados en este momento y le pasamos la palabra de nuevo a Pavlos. Pavlos, please continue your presentation.
Okay, thank you. So, I was saying that graphometry itself is not the solution to the problem, because in the end, the object of analysis is the handwriting of a human individual. So, we have to apply, we have to translate the revelations of the graphometric software according to the traditional graphology, and apply the rules of traditional graphology. The difference is that graphometry gives us the opportunity to demonstrate and to prove our conclusion on a more stable basis, theoretical basis. Another particular sector of graphology is graphopathology. It is a very important diagnostic tool, especially in the case of testaments, or generally in the case of handwritings or signatures of elderly people, or of people with who have faced clinical problems. Of course, from the point of view of the document examiner, it demands graphological knowledge, a basic conception of medical and neurological issues. That does not mean that we have to become doctors, but at least we have to understand basic things regarding the function of the neuromuscular system and the way that the order is given by the brain to the hand in order to produce the handwriting. It's very important for us, in order to solve a case, to arrive to the right conclusion, to have medical documentation, which is not always possible, unfortunately. And we need to have a comparative material of the same period. This is a methodological criterion, which is very important, but it becomes even more important in the case of graphopathological issues. And of course, we need some experience in the graphological translation of the findings. Nobody is born with the experience. The experience comes when you walk through your professional life. But that is why we have to be very, very careful when we try to translate these findings in the case of graphopathological problems. Regarding that, I would like to say that next week there will be in Poland, in Wrocław, the 19th Symposium of Question Document Examination. It was organized last June. Because of COVID, it was postponed for the next October, and now it will we will follow it through the Zoom platform. So this is my paper in that case next week. You can find more information if you want to follow it in the link below. We have to say that in Italy there have been some studies by Professor Alberto Bravo, who runs his own school in Rome almost 30 years now, who has stabilized 11 sequential and different phases of handwriting's aging. I hope that the translation gives the right meaning. We're talking about the effects of the reduction of the hand's flexibility because of the age or because of clinical problems. So we're talking about the reduction of the graphic skill and the graphic ability. We have to pay attention in this particular definition here, because we cannot diagnose the age of the writer by applying this method, but we can diagnose only the graphic phase in which, in a particular period of time, belongs the graphic ability of that hand. These phases do not have the same duration in every individual, because this depends on the evolution of his personal history, the clinical conditions of him, and even other factors which have to deal with the physiological aspect of an individual. For example, we can see people of 80, 90 years old who write very good, they have a good flexibility. So if you say that you have to give an age in that handwriting, you could say that they are 20 or 30 years, they have an age of 20 or 30 years less, and vice versa, of course. So that is why we can't recognize the age of the writer, but we can recognize the phase in which his handwriting belongs in a certain period. Of course, we have to say that it is possible that a particular individual, in just 10 minutes, 1 week, 1 month, he will pass, for example, from the third to the sixth phase, because of an accident, because of a disease, because of a clinical problem. So this is why it's very important for us to have comparative material of that particular period, so as to be able to understand the graphic variability, the limits of variation of its graphic skill in that particular period. This is the bibliography of Professor Alberto Bravo, where he reports these 11 phases. For the ones who can read in Italian, maybe it would be better to follow the original text, because I don't know if it would be possible to give the right meaning by making a translation in another language.
Pavlos, I have a question. Pablo, tengo una pregunta. En este estudio que tú estás diciendo, me imagino que esta escala de variabilidad del envejecimiento de la escritura puede ser afectada, y creo que lo dijiste hace rato, por razones médicas. I mean, the method that you are
not always. About. I understood. Not always, okay. Because sometimes some people they have a very accelerated rhythm of aging in a particular period of their lives. For example, they look very young till 50, 55, 60 years old. And if you see them 1 year after the last time, you will see that maybe they have, they seem as if they had 10 years more in their face or in their structure. So we're not talking only about medical problems which could affect negatively these persons. We could talk even about their particular rhythm of aging, which might be more accelerated in a particular phase of their life. It's just like the steps of evolution of small children when they remain stable, for example, for a long period of time, and somehow in 1 month they can gain 10, 15 centimeters of height without having a particular and stable rhythm of evolution. So we're not talking only about medical problems in these cases. I have to point out that every successive phase has as a characteristic all the negative elements of the previous phases. In every successive phase, something more as a negative result is added in the graphic ability. So we have a complete deterioration, a continuous deterioration of the graphic ability. This is somehow a way of recognizing in which period we have to collocate a graphic product. It has happened to me. Of course, I was very lucky because I had an extensive comparative material, so I could understand the evolution, the involution practically, the deterioration of the graphic skill of the genuine hand. So I had a testament to analyze, and I could understand that the date that was written in the testament was not the right one, because the characteristics of the handwriting were belonging to the last month of the life of the testator, when the date was 2 years ago, 2 years before. So sometimes these phases of handwritings aging are very important as diagnostic tools and help us to understand what is going on in that particular case. About the scientific methodology, we talked before about the problems of the recognition of the scientific nature. Although this is, let's say, an external problem of graphology, from the moment that we are talking between us as professionists of the same sector, I think that we can talk about the internal problems, the internal issues of method. I have not invented the wheel. I'm not saying things that are new. I just tried to make a condensed organization of the of the basic methodological criteria. And from my little experience, I have understood that these methodological criteria have a double way of a double vision, the stricto sensu and the lato sensu. I have written an article in the Slovak Graphological Society, in an issue of Slovak Graphological Society in the end of last year, regarding this analysis that I'm going to talk about. So, what is the difference between the stricto sensu and the lato sensu vision? The stricto sensu vision deals with the criteria considered under the strict limits of the scientific and methodological protocol. It is the narrow vision of the epistemological view of these criteria. The lato sensu vision of the above criteria deals with a wider approach of the case, which takes into consideration even some particularities of it, historical particularities, or data of common sense, of data of common experience. For example, older persons may have graphokinetic problems, even though they might not have any particular clinical problems. These are parameters that we have to evaluate in order to take the right direction towards the conclusion in a particular case. And these are the wider approach of the stricto sensu mentality. The main methodological criteria, stricto sensu, in their stricto sensu vision, concern three aspects: the qualitative, the quantitative, and the chronological. The qualitative criterion is divided in two different vectors. The first one concerns our possibility of examining the original document, or eventually a photocopy of it, a photograph of it, a scan of it, or any other kind of copy. And the second one concerns our possibility of having undoubtedly authentic specimens of the person who is involved in the case.
Pavlos.
Of course.
We're trying to get on track with the translation, and you're not. We know that
yes, okay.
Very inspired, but Andrea is.
I'll try. Yes,
he has been doing it.
She's doing a great job, but it's my fault. I admit it.
Don't worry. So
what about
a little bit slower?
Okay. So in the second vector regarding the authenticity or not of the comparative material,
let's do something. We're going to change translators. I'm going to try to do it for 10 minutes, and she will be back. Then wait a second to do a change here.
Andrea, I'm really sorry. It's my fault. I apologize.
Don't worry. She's laughing. Okay, wait.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm taking care from here. Okay, continue.
So, regarding the authenticity or not of the comparative material, when we have public documents, that means documents where the signatures are certified, are authenticated by public services, for example, a signature in a notary. Of course, we can be always theoretically, sure that this is an authentic specimen. The problem is when we have to deal with private documents, because sometimes the forger who has, for example, written a testament in the name of the testator is the person who has produced even the comparative material. So it has happened to me in a case where I was nominated by the court that the most important comparative document was a letter which was in the same period with the testament. According to the analysis, the testament and this letter was written by the same hand. One of the parts, the part that presented in the case's file this private letter, was claiming that it was an authentic specimen of the testator. I didn't follow this direction as in my conclusion. I said that both documents were written by the same hand. That was for sure. I was certain for that. If the letter was really written by the testator, then the testament was authentic. If not, then the testament was forged. In this case, later I heard that the lawyer of the part that was not in a positive position because of this conclusion, claimed to the court that this letter was supposed to have been sent by normal mail to the other part of the case. So, how could the other part have the original in hand? This was just a logic question which gave the solution to the problem. If I had said that since that part is claiming that the private letter is authentic, then the testament is authentic, I would have made a terrible mistake. I would have misled justice. So I think that we have to be very careful.
Pavlos,
I keep going.
Pavlos, the image, it's static. Are you changing your presentation in your computer?
No. I didn't say it. I didn't change it yet. So it's okay. It's okay. I will change it in a couple of seconds.
Ok, que ya viene la próxima lámina. Seguimos traduciendo aquí en simultáneo.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So I was saying that we have to be very careful in the way we are declaring our conclusion, in the way we describe our conclusion. The second criterion is the quantitative. Of course, as we can understand, it's about the quantity of specimens we have in the comparative material. This can give us as much as we have. The more we have, the better it is for us in order to understand all the variability and the limits of the hand while producing the handwriting. So we don't have to say anything more, I think, about this criterion, but here we have to make a particular reference, the chronological criterion. I am a little bit personally allergic to it because I always find problems in practice regarding the chronological category of the comparative material, and I become more specific. We have the content, the real meaning of this criterion is that we have in the absolute necessity to organize the comparative material or even the suspected documents, if there are more than one, in a chronological order from the older one to the last one. This is of major importance because it helps the expert on completing the frame of the evolution or involution of the writer's skill throughout time. Apart from this, sometimes attorneys, lawyers put in the cases file different copies of the same document because, of course, they are not document examiners, so they can't understand the difference or the similarities between two different pieces of paper. So sometimes we have in the comparative material 3 or 4 times the same document, maybe in original and in different photocopies. If we don't put in the right chronological order this comparative material using this exact point of reference, then we find ourselves to give different names, different nominations in every copy of the same document. That means that we might have in the case 20 documents and we give 30 names as if there were 30 documents. If we put in the chronological order and we do the list of the comparative material, we will find the documents of the same date, one next to the other. And then we will simply compare in order to see if it is about the same document or not. Last summer, it has happened to me. I was a technical advisor, and in the case of expertise, the document examiner nominated by the court, I'm waiting for the translation, was given a photocopy of the suspected document. There was no original because it was destroyed. We had a certification about it. And he took the suspected document from the one part of the case and the comparative material and the suspected document from the other part of the case in a different photocopy. Unfortunately, he didn't realize that he had put the suspected document not only as suspected document, but even as comparative material. What was the most surprising of it was...
Pavlos, please, can you repeat the last part?
Yes, he did the mistake.
We're going to change translators again.
Okay.
This is very tough, but we are...
I know, I have done it from English to Italian live, so I can understand you. It's really tough.
Andrea is very worried because I'm not as good as her. Andrea, mi hija, los que están oyendo en español, está preocupada porque no traduzco tan rápido y tan bien como ella. Ya la estoy asignando de nuevo. Andrea se va a ganar un premio aquí en el programa de en producción. A ver, listo. Done. Okay, Pavlos. Let's go again.
So I was saying that the document examiner nominated by the court has made the mistake to put the suspected document not only in the category of suspected document, but even in the comparative material. The most surprising part of it was the conclusion, because practically he compared the suspected document to itself, and he found out that they were written by two different hands. So this is a clamorous case of not applying in practice the chronological criterion. So,
do you have any image of that case?
No. If you want, next time I could. Next time we meet, I could send you by mail if you want to present it, or I could make a reference of 10 minutes.
Like...
Okay. So.
Perfect. No, estaba pidiendo Okay. Go.
Okay. So we have to say that in the chronological criterion is included the term of suspected documents of suspected period or not. We have to say that typically the suspected period starts from the date of the suspected document and then. Practically, sometimes it happens that the suspected document does not start from the date of the suspected period, does not start from the date of the suspected document. Because if, for example, 10 years ago, someone has put my signature, has forged my signature in a bank loan, and I knew about it yesterday, then the suspected period of my comparative material starts from yesterday. So this is a way of, this is the vision of the lato sensu approach of this methodological criterion. Another example of a bad application of the stricto sensu criterion is when we have experts that we present, it's just the case we said before, when we put different names in different copies of the same document. So we are confusing, we get confused by ourselves and we give a bad image of our professional figure. Let's go to the cases so as to see something in the practice in the Greek alphabet. We have in this case a testament of a person who in that date, 5 March of 2007, he was carried by the ambulance to the intensive care unit being in coma. And in the same date, he is supposed to have written his testament. Let's go to the image because the image is the one that gives us everything as an information. I have cancelled several parts of the surname of the testator, just in order to respect the privacy law. We can see, first of all, that in the left part of the screen, the graphic ability is quite better than the one in the left part, in the right part of the screen. In the right part of the screen, we see that there are points where even the traces and the strokes of the same letters or of different words or rows are confused, are written one upon the other, so as they affect negatively the legibility of the text. The central part, rows 5 and 6, are more legible, and this is the part where we have the reference to the name of the heir and to the fact that the testator leaves all the belongings to the heir. As a first impact, we could say that we are talking about a person who has graphopathological issues in his handwriting. If we examine the details, I think that we can understand that there are some incongruencies in the dynamic aspect of the text. There are some cases, some points of the text where we find very curved strokes. Of course, the tremor in the handwriting of elderly people. Are we okay? Okay. Curved traces, curved strokes. Shall I go on? Okay. So
yes, continue.
Okay, there are points where there are curved strokes and other points where we find a very intense graphic tremor. Is it possible for a hand which has these graphopathological problems to be able in some points to make very flexible movements and produce so curved strokes? Is it possible for a hand with this tremor to be able to recreate a difference in the thickness and the intensity of the color of the traces according to the direction? Let's see what is going on. First of all, it's what we said before, that we have some points where everything is completely confused and illegible. There are two zones in the text where we find this characteristic. These are the points where we find the great flexibility of the hand. You can see in the green arrows that we have a great curved and a flexible movement because it completely changes direction 2 times in a small trace, and then it goes to a curved vertical stroke which do not practically present almost nothing regarding the tremor. Then in the base, I'm talking about the image on the lower left part of the screen. In the base of this, it's the letter T in Greek. It's in the base of this letter we find another very curved change of direction in order to move the hand towards the letter O, which is the next one. If we see in details the image in the lower right part of the screen, which is the magnification of the red rectangular indication, we can see that the beginning of the trace is very dynamic, and we start from a very straight line. Then we have a second very straight and very dynamic line, and then we have a curved change of direction, and in some points of these traces we find sudden angles, which is the reason why, not the reason why, I'm sorry, which is not the effort, the writer is trying to reproduce a graphopathological trace, to give this notion of the hand that is not able to write, who finds it very difficult to write. This is the first letter, the first morphological design is the letter S of the Greek language, and the second one is the letter O. If we see the letter O, we see that we have a very curved movement. That means a great flexibility of the hand. And we have in the point of the pink arrow, in the head of this lower right image, we have a fake connection between the letters, because practically the letter S is finishing each trace in the center part of the letter. Could it be possible for a person who has this graphic difficulty in writing to be able to recreate in the lower part of the testament this very flexible trait, just as the one with the green arrows? Is it possible? No, the logic aspect of the handwriting that we expect to see in these cases is that because of the fact that there is lack of energy and lack of a neurological flexibility, the more the hand is writing, the more becomes tired. So we face more and more, we should expect more and more difficulty and more illegible handwriting from a certain point and then till the end of the testament. Here we have the opposite characteristic. We find in some particular points flexibility and towards the lower part of the text, towards the end of the text, and that is not compatible with the graphopathological general rules as we know it. So we know that forged documents, because of the automation of the handwriting, in some points they present some abnormalities, some points of lack of compatibility of the dynamic aspects, because usually the forger is younger than the testator, so he has not experienced in his neurological function the problems of the third age or the clinical problems. So he is trying to reproduce the morphology of the tremor. He's trying to reproduce the external aspect of the handwriting. Sometimes he can't even realize the dynamic characteristics. He can't go into the deep in the analysis of the handwriting he wants to imitate. In some other cases, he is able to recognize those dynamical aspects, but he is not able to reproduce them because his neuromuscular system functions properly. So we have to take into consideration and pay attention to the particular points of the testament. We have to analyze every particular trait in order to understand if this difficulty of handwriting is fake or real. Sometimes the forger has the opportunity to reproduce the forged document several times so as to make a practice and in the end use the most successful attempt in order to present it to the court so as to become legally valid. So he is advantaged in this case because it's much more difficult when you have to fulfill a document, an existing document, by writing only a letter, a number, or just a word, because the document is existent and you have only one effort, only one attempt in order to succeed. The second case, we have a man who is suffering from multiple sclerosis. He died on January 2001 and the testament date is almost 1 month before death. He's suffering from multiple sclerosis for 20 years before the date of the testament. In this case, in the beginning, we had the opportunity of examining only the photocopy of the testament. And here is the point of putting into discussion even the comparison between the diagnostic possibility through a photocopy and the diagnostic possibility by examining the original.
Pavlos, a question, una pregunta. En Grecia es válido otorgar testamentos privados o hológrafos o tienen que ser otorgados ante notarios o registradores. Did you understand?
Yes, we have two different kinds of testaments, two general categories. There are 2 or 3 kinds of testaments in front of the notary, and this and the other one is the holographic testament. I have to to point out here that the term holographic, in my opinion, is not the right one as a meaning from the hermeneutical aspect. I'm
doing a
I'm going to explain it why.
Okay.
Holographic means that it is written by the same hand. Holo means all, and graphic, it's written. So the most important aspect is not if the document is written from the end to the beginning by the same hand. The problem is if this hand is the hand of the real testator. Okay. So that's why we call it ideographic in the Greek legislation. That means that the same testator, idios, has written it from the beginning to the end. The same problem I have seen even in the Italian legislation. Maybe there is a misunderstanding in the use of the term. They talk about holographic testament even in the Italian legislation. So practically in the Greek legislation, when we have an ideographic testament, we have to take it to the court and ask for its publication. The judge will control if there are all the legal requisites so as to be considered as an ideographic will, and then he publicates it and it becomes legally valid. From that point, someone could start a civil procedure in order to prove that it is fake, it is forged, it's not written by the testator. And this is the part where we enter into the game as document examiners. So, returning to this case, we can notice even from the photocopy that the three ultimate rows are very dark, are very intense in the color of the reproduced by the photocopier ink. We can also see that there is a tremor, much more tremor, in the numbers of the date in the first row, 1 and 12. So we already have some questions about what is happening here. We can also see that in the seventh row, the first row where the ink is darker, is more intense, we have the lack of the extensions of the long letters in the zone, in the lower, towards the lower zone. I will show it to you in the next. This is the point. If we make the measurements, we say the first letter should be, it's the letter M. It should have an extension in the lower part, which is cut. The same things is valid even for the third letter of the second word. It's the word R or P in Latin. Apart from this, we can see a double line of the row in this case. And this is very strange also. So we are really curious to see the document in its original. Apart from this, we can observe from the photocopy this different graphic skill. So we're talking practically in order to make the link with the phases of handwriting ages. We have two different ages. 112 indicates less flexibility of the hand, a lower deteriorated graphic skill, while the date of the year 2000 has other more dynamic characteristics.
Pavlos, in the red square, there are three numbers. En el recuadro rojo hay tres números.
Yes.
El número, el tercero es el número 2.
Yes, it's number 2. Yes. So it's written in Europe. Usually we write first the day, then the month, and the last number is the year. I think in the USA they write first the year, then the month, and then the date in the opposite direction. So it's 1 December 2000, practically. 1/12/2000.
Okay.
Okay.
No, continue.
So I am describing these things here that we have already said about the different color of the ink, the darker color of the ink in the last 3 rows. I have to say that in this case we have a very, very complicated model of the signature, which is really too hard to imitate, and I will explain you why I say this. We already talked about the double baseline in this part of in the lower part of the Testament. We see that even the last 2 rows have the same intensity in the darkness of the color, which we face for the first time in the 7th row. And this is the original of the Testament. I have put it in the glass of the window with the sun in the back part of it, because this was indicating much better the collage, the incollation that has been done in the lower part of the original. Practically, the testator was married, but he had no children. He had a house that had a great value, so he was not very happy with the behavior of his wife after his clinical problems. So he didn't want to leave this house to her. He wanted to leave her to his brother, who was a lawyer. He was a police officer and he went in pension. Sorry, Andrea, sorry. I started running again.
So this is the original document. Este es el documento original.
Yes, this is the original document. The original documents are always kept on the court after the publication of the Testament. So we have to go.
Pablo, ¿y de dónde venía la doble línea? Where did the double line came on the photocopy?
I will show you in the next slide.
I'm sorry.
No. It's quite logic to ask this thing because it's very curious. His wife had only finished the first elementary school, so she was not educated. She didn't know the requisites of the ideographic wheel. He was pressing him to give her a testament. So he wrote the text. He didn't write in the beginning. He didn't put his signature. He didn't write the date. Afterwards, she found out about the date, so he was pressing him to write the date. And he has written 1/12 without the year, because he knew that without the year, the testament was not valid. Apart from this, he didn't put his signature because he knew it was very, very complicated to reproduce it. So this was a sheet of paper out of a small notebook used in the elementary school. In another sheet of the same notebook, he had written an affirmation to his wife in order to take the pension from the bank. So they found that affirmation that was not used, it was original. They cut the upper part of the affirmation by keeping only the signature, and they cut the lower part of the text, and they tried to make the incollation in the central part of it. That's why you find the double line in the photocopy, because the photocopier, when reproducing the paper, the document, it reads a different level in that part of the paper. So it makes, because of the shadow, it makes a double line in that part. Let's see the back of the paper. We can see the incollation with the green arrows, and we can see the use of adhesive tape in order to build practically this incollation, to make it stable. This is the point in the lower part of the text where the two pieces of paper are incollated. We see that they were not so clever because they even used liquid glue, which created this distortion in the ink, in the quality of ink, and this diffusion proprio Italic word, Italian word. Exactly this diffusion of the ink in the surface of the paper. And this is the reason why we couldn't find the extension of these bars of the letters towards the lower zone.
In the photocopy.
Okay, yes, in the photocopy, but even in the original we can't find it, because you can see here that the lower part is incollated above the upper part of the document. So it practically cuts all the extensions of the long letters.
Okay.
Apart from this, we can see in the back part of the paper that there is something written and erased, maybe with liquid correcting fluid. I have to say that this is a case of my beginning as a document examiner. I didn't have the appropriate technical equipment in order to see what was written in there. This is another part of the incollation where we find marks and remains of the writings of the incollated paper of the lower part, which was practically folded in order to create this incollation. Here we can see, even without special equipment, with a naked eye, that we have to deal with two different ink colors. The logic explanation is that those two rows of the text were written in different times. This is the point where we find these two different rows, and that is the reason why the photocopier has read in different darkness the color of the traits of the document which was reproduced. the same problem, we find the same problem in the date. Apart from the difference in the color between 112 and the text on the left or in the second row below, we can see here that we have a different graphic skill. 112 present elements of graphic tremor, of more intense graphic tremor in relation to the graphic ability of the text. The most important comparison is between the two numbers 2. The number of the month, number 2 of the month, and the next number of the date. First of all, we see that the space between 1 and 12 and 2 is different. We also see that the number 2 of the date has more dynamic aspects, mainly in the diagonal trait and the horizontal base in the lower part of the number. Apart from this, we see that the last number 0 is very curved, and that maybe the forger has tried to overwrite it. It's the first time I'm talking about the forger, because all the other part of the text is genuine, is authentic, is written by the same hand, by the testator. That was the result of the comparison with the comparative material. But the problem for the problem of the testament was the lack of date, and the lack of date was located in the year. There was no year written in the date. So, since he died on January 8th January of 2001, they had the chance or to fulfill the date by writing 2000, or to write 1998, 96 something. We usually find maybe they thought that it's more difficult to write 19 something because it has more curved numbers. I don't think that that changes even in the case of 2000, because we have 3 zeros and the upper part of the number 2 has a circle, quite a circle as well. Apart from this, we see that the different pens, the different color of the ink indicates different times of writing, of fulfilling the paper. So maybe we're talking about a testament which is written in 4, 3, 4, 5 different times, every part of it. That does not mean that it is not legally valid, because according to the Greek legislation, even if several parts of the testament, sorry Andrea, I'm going fast again. According to the Greek legislation, even if different parts of the same testament are written in different times, there is no problem. Sometimes there should be a new signature for every part that is added on a second time. But the decisions of the courts do not always follow this tendency. So I think that in this case, the only forged part of the document, as far as the handwriting and the signature is concerned, is the date, the year 2000. But there's another legal problem regarding the validity of this ideographic will. We have a forged document by composition. The initial text was not, did not have a signature under it. the forger knew that he could not imitate. He had only one attempt because the text was written by the testator. He had only one attempt and it was really difficult to succeed. So they decided to do this collage, this incollation, in order to create an ideographic wheel. Even by naked eye, we can see a slight difference between the color of the ink of 112 and the color of the ink of 2000. Maybe it's not so obvious in the case of the two last numbers of 0 because of the fact that they are written, they are overwritten practically 2 times. This is the end of my presentation. I would really like to thank you for the invitation, first of all, and I am at your disposal for eventual questions.
Pavlos, sumamente agradecidos. Por favor, deja de compartir pantalla. Please stop sharing your screen.
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Here I am.
Bien, Pablo, estamos sumamente agradecidos. Hemos hecho un viaje técnico, científico, jurídico a tu tierra maravillosa, Grecia, cuna de la cultura, cuna de la humanidad, cuna de la filosofía, y nos hemos paseado por temas técnicos, periciales. Quedamos gratamente sorprendidos con lo que compartiste con nosotros de las etapas del envejecimiento de la escritura. Hemos compartido ya con todos los presentes el libro del autor en los chats y para nosotros ha sido un honor el que te hayas quedado hasta tan tarde para compartir con nosotros tanta información, tantos temas académicos y por supuesto este caso práctico del testamento y que nos hayas hablado de la legislación en cuanto a la validez de los testamentos. Ha sido una experiencia única. No me queda más que agradecerte y siempre decirte que este canal es tu casa. Ya sabes que tienes nuevos amigos. Te invitamos tal vez a que inicies, y así lo voy a proponer en la próxima junta directiva, a ver si te animas a iniciar el capítulo de Sibdo Grecia, porque nuestra sociedad no llega nada más.
I will be honored too.
Bueno, te voy a proponer, así que be prepared, prepárate para que seas tal vez el fundador en poco tiempo de nuestra asociación, que es una gran familia. Pablo, estamos...
It will be a great honor for me. Thank you for the invitation today and to become member of the association. It would be a great honor for me.
Será un honor para nosotros. Amigos, vamos a dar un agradecimiento especial a Andrea, nuestra traductora y que nos ha acompañado el día de hoy. Es cofundadora de Ararauna News, un boletín informativo. Andrea es comunicadora social y es cofundadora y socia del proyecto araraunanews.com, en el cual se envían las noticias de nuestro país, en el caso de Venezuela, a diario. Perfecto. De manera resumida. Queremos invitarlos a suscribirse a este canal. Queremos invitarlos a oír los podcasts en Spotify, Amazon y en todas las plataformas. Este va a ser subido próximamente. Pavlos, gracias por acompañarnos siempre y estar compartiendo con nosotros, a todos los que se han conectado hoy desde México, Argentina, Colombia, hoy también tenemos gente de Brasil y por supuesto a todos nuestros compañeros europeos también, desde España y ahora y contigo desde Grecia, pues les agradecemos muchísimo el haber participado en este programa de hoy. Entonces, Pavlos, we will be waiting for you in next programs. Te esperamos en los próximos programas y a todos ustedes, pues, inscríbanse a través de documentoscopia.net a todas estas reuniones en Zoom y pueden ver estos videos o, digamos, el video, todos estos programas a través del canal Grafotécnica en YouTube, Documentoscopia Mundial. Nos despedimos de todos ustedes hasta una próxima oportunidad.
I will be glad to. Thank you very much. Have a nice evening. Thank you very much.
Bye, Pavlos.
Bye, bye. Thank you.